to have a schedule that really fits my needs. And that means having a lot of time on my own, or if I have really crazy weeks when I have a lot of interaction, then I know that the next one has to be a bit slower so I can get my energy back. Then I really, really focus on the things that matter. I know what kind of activities produce the best results for me, and I just do those.
Hello, and welcome to episode 129 of the Quiet and Strong podcast, especially for introverts. I'm your host, David Hall, and the creator of quietandstrong.com. This is a weekly podcast dedicated to understanding the strengths and needs of introverts. Introversion is not something to fix, but to be embraced. Normally, we will air each episode on a Monday. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform. Leave a review. That would mean a lot to me. Tell a friend about the podcast. Help get the word out there that introversion is a beautiful thing. Andreea Sandu is a certified high-performance coach and author of The Introvert Who Could. She currently splits her time between writing and helping creatives achieve their goals. Andreea considers herself a visible introvert and is on a mission to change how others perceive this personality type. She lives in the UK with her husband, toddler, and 2 beagles. Welcome to the Quiet and Strong podcast, Andreea. It's so good to have you on today.
Thank you very much. I am very happy to be here, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation because, as I said when we were chatting, it's not as usual for me to find someone who's as passionate about this topic as I am. So this is a great space for me right now.
Yeah, so 2 passionate introverts, what could be better? And Andreea, we're going to get into your book, The Introvert Who Could. But before we do that, let's just talk about your journey as an introvert to then becoming a high-performance coach and an author.
So my first 10 years of my working life have been in software. I've been a software engineer to begin with. And towards the end, I was starting to feel like I want to have my own thing. I would like to, be my own boss, have my own schedule, do things my way. So I started to have side hustles. I've gone through quite a few transitions, blogging, fitness, and eventually got to land on coaching and writing, which I feel they're very introvert friendly, because as a coach, I am kind of the person that's behind the scenes, that's helping you, supporting you all the time, but I'm not, I'm not the performer. My client is. And for writing has been one of my main ways to market myself, because writing gives me the opportunity to put my thoughts on the page and be able to edit, really think about my ideas and develop them. I guess email for me has been the main way to market myself. And also, writing is amazing because you can do it, in your own time, wearing your pajamas. You don't have to go anywhere, which is amazing. And with coaching, I do one-on-one and small group coaching. So that gives me the opportunity to really build strong relationships. And I love that. And it's very, for us introverts, I think strong relationships are the way.
Yeah, and that's we often talk about myths on this show, and it's a myth that introverts don't like people. It's just we thrive in the one-on-one or the small group, and so that's awesome. And we also often thrive in writing, where we give ourselves some time to think and process our thoughts. So that's amazing.
Right. Yep, exactly. And I chose high performance because I've always been into personal development and productivity specifically. And then obviously high performance is a lot more than productivity, but that's what kind of brought me to it. And a funny story on one of high performance coaching sessions that was for me, I was the client. On one of those sessions, I got to change how I see introversion. So that was my light bulb moment. And for that, I was forever grateful. And I love high performance for that. It was the session on courage, by the way.
Uh-huh.
And what I went to be coached on was, hey, I want to build my business, and I know I need to network for that because, I need to meet people and tell them what I do, but I'm an introvert. And the coach said to me, but what does that mean, that you're an introvert and you can network? Why are those things related? And it really made me ask myself, why are those things related in my mind? Is it because other people say they are? Is it because it's just the common belief? So it made me question, why am I making my introversion mean that I cannot do stuff? Why am I focusing on the negatives? And that was my light bulb moment, and everything changed from that.
That's awesome. So before that, when was it that you determined, hey, I'm an introvert? What was that light bulb moment?
I don't think I labeled it until very late in my life. I probably understood that I'm different because people were telling me that I'm quiet. And I was trying to change, even though I liked it in my own way. But in a job, they keep telling you, you have to talk more in meetings. You have to be more social. And I thought oh, that's the truth, even though I didn't really want to change. And I think I realized I put the label on it in the beginning of my business. I heard someone talk about Myers-Briggs, and I went to do the tests myself. And I'm an introvert. This is a thing. There's nothing wrong with me. This is actually a thing. And I can also see the good stuff in it. And I am an INFJ, by the way. And that was, from then on, I thought, okay, so this is a personality type. There's nothing wrong with me. Let's see how this works and how we can utilize the strengths of the personality.
Yeah. The Myers-Briggs has definitely been part of what's helped me understand and embrace my introversion as well. What were the things that you thought, oh, here's what's good about this?
I knew that I am a deep thinker. And until that point, I was thinking that's holding me back. But then I realized, deep thinking is actually also good planning. I'm also a very, very good listener. And again, I used to judge myself for that. And now I see, if you listen, if you just pause and listen to the other person, you will learn so much about them. And that is good even for business, right? Because we understand what the other person needs, but also that makes you a really, really, really good friend. So thinking and listening were definitely superpowers that I finally saw. And I don't think this is for everyone. I've heard that it's true for some people, not true for others, but empathy. I am on the more extreme side of the sensitivity spectrum. And I judged myself for that a lot in the past. And now, again, I see that it's a really good thing.
Yeah, it's a gift. But like you're saying, we might experience it differently. You said you were INFJ, and the F stands for feeling. I'm a INTJ and it stands for thinking. So I have empathy, but mine is probably going to look a little different than yours. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, mine's going to be more of a thinking kind of empathy, and yours is going to be a more feeling. For whatever reason, you probably feel the feelings of others more than I do. And I am going to be more like, you know what? If I was helping you, I would use my imagination and think, what's it like to be Andreea? What's she going through? Versus you might, if you were helping me, you might do some of that too, but might actually feel more of my feelings. And again, we're all different. And we were talking a little bit before the show too, that the Myers-Briggs really kind of helps some of those other things that may not be directly related to introversion, extroversion. It helps explore, how you see the world, how you are organized or more spontaneous, big picture details. So it's a good thing because we're half the population. We're not all the same, like there's a lot that we have in common as introverts, but as we get to know each other more, there's a lot of gifts that you have that I may not have exactly. And that's important to understand. And I think something that we all share is what you said first was we're deep thinkers. And that is such a valuable gift, but it can be misunderstood. And I think part of that gift is understanding that you have needs that go along with it. And that's some of the misunderstandings. Like you and I, we're going to need some time to think, whereas somebody, maybe the extrovert doesn't need that time. They have some different needs, but we need to understand our own need to, take some time to think, process, plan, focus, all of that. And it's not strange. It's just what we need as part of our deep thinking. And the world needs deep thinkers. We need people to solve some serious problems and come up with some innovative solutions. That the deep thinkers are very needed. And it's bad that sometimes that we were made to feel like our gift wasn't valuable.
That's true. Just sometimes I try to imagine, what if everyone would just talk all the time? It would be chaos. No one would listen to anyone. No one would have any space to think or come up with ideas. That would be terrible. So we need both. We need both introverts and extroverts, and we have to really accept that we are all very valuable and understand each of these personalities' needs, because if I don't take care of my needs, I will not produce the best work that I can produce. And we want everyone to come with their best work.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said. We need everybody, and we just all need to understand each other.
Right.
So how did you get into high performance coaching? And just tell us briefly what the 6 pillars are that you go by.
As I said, I was very into productivity. So I discovered high performance through productivity, and then really understood what it means and how to apply it for myself. High performance is achieving success on a long period of time without sacrificing the rest of your life, your health, your relationships. And the whole concept was created by researching the top performers in the world and doing a lot of coaching sessions with top performers to understand what are their common habits, common qualities. Can I take those and use them for myself and become a top performer? So they got to the conclusion that there are 6 habits that if we all apply, no matter where we are, our age, our personality types, we can all get to that kind of success. And those are clarity, seeking clarity, increasing our energy. Then we have courage, productivity, necessity, and the motivation, and influence. And I think influence, when I got to understand it, that was also a really big turning point in my life when it comes to being an introvert, because that's when I realized you cannot thrive in life if you don't have this skill. You cannot live on an island on your own. You have to have this skill. You have to know how to talk to people, to motivate them, to sell them on your product, on yourself. Even in our day-to-day communication, we want to know how to talk to our families so they can understand us. They can, even do what we want them to do. But influence is such a big skill. And I kind of pushed it to the side for a big part of my life because I thought I don't need it. And also because I'm an introvert, I can never be good at that. And I learned it. And it made such a big difference. You can be an introvert and be very influential.
Yeah. And so those 6 principles apply to everybody, but an introvert might go about them a little differently. That's where your book leads, right?
Right. And even if you think about, I guess, clarity, really knowing yourself and what you're capable of and what you want, and then having courage to go and do it, and influence to have the people around you that could help you, that's it. You're good to go. A bit of productivity, and then that necessity, that motivation, something that pulls you forward, and anyone can be successful.
Absolutely. So
yes, I'm saying it as an easy thing. Of course, it's not easy, but it's simple.
So I love the title of your book, The Introvert Who Could, and then of course the subtitle, How to Succeed in Your Career and Life by Nurturing Who You Are. I love that. And that goes along with what you're saying. We can be successful. We can be high performers, but as introverts, we need to understand how we're going to approach those things.
Correct. I wanted the book to be a book about how to achieve success. That was it. That was my goal in the beginning. And I really thought, what angle could I apply to this book? What really can make it stand out? And I thought about what held me back in the past, like, being an introvert. Okay, now we can add some really specific things. So it can be a book about success for introverts. And the subtitle was because, as I said, in my corporate life, on every single review, every single year, I had a manager who told me, you have to be more social. You have to go out to the events. You have to talk more in meetings. And I got sick of it. I didn't want to change anymore. I didn't even want to try anymore. So I wanted to have success in my own way. Was that possible? Yes. I had to find it.
And that's the key. It is success in your own way. My first book was on productivity, especially for introverts, because that I learned that. And just the quick story behind it was, I was learning I was an introvert. At the same time, I was extremely busy. I had a full-time plus job. My wife has her own business, which I help her run. And I had 3 kids. I still have 3 kids, but they definitely all kept me. It was very busy. So I was studying time management at the same time. And I was realizing there's some principles here, but they're not called out as introverts, or in some cases, they're not saying what I need. And that's the whole thing. Like, yeah, I need some time alone every day. I don't want to be alone all the time. Like, connection is very important. Spending time with family, friends, work colleagues, that's all important, but I need some time. And so that's the difference, is like, what do you need as an introvert? Or in your book, you get into things like, how do you network as an introvert? And if I compare myself to my extroverted colleague in a networking event and try to do things like her, not only am I not going to be happy, I'm not going to be successful. I'm not going to try and meet all 100 people all at once, but I'm going to try to find some good conversations, some deep conversations. And I'm not saying her way is wrong where she's bouncing around as quickly as she can, but it's not going to work for me. It's not going to be effective. I'm not going to have a good time.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. Since you were talking about networking, I I did I had this idea in the beginning that I couldn't do it at all. This is not for me. I don't even want to try because it will be terrible. And that really was only a thought. It's not true. It was embedded in my mind because I've heard it from other people so many times, but that doesn't make it true. So once I decided to, no, I'm going to change this idea. I don't want this to be true for myself. How can I network in my own way? So once that idea went out of my mind, everything was so much easier. And I tried, I started really small. I started with the online events and small groups and asking other people to introduce me, really, really small steps until I was able to go for the big events and even the ones in person. A few years ago, going to an in-person event would have scared me like crazy. Now I'm going to one tomorrow and I'm really excited about it.
So using networking as an example, I think part of it is, figuring out what you need as an introvert, how you'll be successful. But another thing I really like about your book is you really devote a lot of time to being able to change your thoughts and your emotions. So if at first you were scared about the networking event, you could go to it, but if you don't change your thoughts that this isn't scary, you're going to be scared every time. And I've learned that if you change your thoughts, your emotions around it, then the next time it doesn't have to be a scary thing. So talk to us about how you can change your thoughts and your emotions around something that isn't comfortable for you or is scaring you.
Changing your thoughts, first of all, you have to start being aware of them. And sometimes we are not. We operate in some ways and we think they're just the default and this is how it's done. And we don't stop to question, why am I doing this? Or why am I thinking this? Because once you identify those thoughts, you can change them. It will take some time. And while you change them, all you really need to do is be aware of them. One of my really powerful ones that I had to eventually change was I'm socially awkward. So just imagine, how do you feel when you were constantly thinking, I'm socially awkward? Well, you go somewhere and you feel awkward because that's the story you tell yourself. It's like your thoughts create a sort of energy around you. And that's what other people sense as well. So if I'm thinking I'm socially awkward, I go somewhere and not only I feel awkward, but those other people will perceive me as awkward. And that's what I'm going to create in my life. And once I realized, oh, am I really thinking this? Why am I thinking this? I'm a really lovely person. Let's start to change that. And before every single interaction, I just reminded myself, oh, this is your default thought. How do you want to think in this moment? What do you want to project to the world? And the one that I eventually replaced it with was, I have a lot to offer to the world. People will be really, really lucky to meet me. And obviously that feels confident, that feels open, curious for me. So when I go somewhere, this is what I project. This is how people perceive me. I'm not the awkward one anymore. But yeah, you need to spend a bit of time trying to understand your thoughts, which is something really fun for us, right? To stop and think about things.
We're good at thinking. We're good at reflecting. And so, we can overcome these bad thoughts by reflecting and replacing them, right?
Right. And you can do that simply by, just thinking. You can use journaling. You can talk to someone in a conversation. Those things, if you speak them, they will eventually come out, and you can hear yourself saying, oh, I'm awkward, or I'm terrible with meeting people. You stop and you say, oh, did I just say that? Is that really true? Is that what's running in the computer in my mind? So yeah, as tools, this is what I would suggest if you want to do this kind of work.
Yeah. And just an example of feeling like you're awkward. So you can totally change your thoughts. And, as you were putting it, I'm a very worthwhile person. I have a lot to offer. All of those, can fill yourself with those kinds of things. And at the same time, something that's really helped me is just remembering I'm not awkward, but it's okay. I'm going to have some awkward moments. Everybody does, It's normal to have awkward moments. As an introvert, I do get lost in my thoughts sometimes, and that can lead to awkward moments, but I'm not an awkward person. I just might have an awkward moment, and that's normal, and everybody experiences those.
That's really, really good. Yeah. And in the way that you've said it, you're also detaching yourself from the word. You're not awkward. You're not labeling yourself as awkward. It's just something that happens.
Yeah, and it happens to everybody.
To everybody.
Yeah. Okay. I also love in your book that you talk about productivity. Again, that's a big passion of mine. What do we need to know as introverts to be productive? What's different in our approach?
First of all, and we already touched on this, really understand what you need. How do you operate best? So then you don't just do things, but you do things well. Because I've had times in my life when, yes, I did the thing, but because I didn't have the proper conditions, it wasn't good. So I had to do it again, and that obviously wastes precious time. So understand your needs, understand the conditions in which you work best, and create that for yourself. And then look at what makes you not be productive. And that's usually because you don't have energy, whether that's mental, emotional, or physical, or you don't have time. And again, look at why are those things happening? Is it because you have too much on your plate? Because you're unable to say no to other people, which I find that is a bit hard for us. Sometimes I just say yes only so I can finish the conversation and be done with it, rather than have the awkwardness of saying no. So why are you busy? And then, as we just talked, what are your thoughts? What is stopping you from being productive? Because productive is again, it's an energy. What is the thought that's producing however you're acting right now?
What are some things that you do to be productive as an introvert?
I try to have a schedule that really fits my needs. And that means having a lot of time on my own, or if I have really crazy weeks when I have a lot of interaction, then I know that the next one has to be a bit slower so I can get my energy back. Then I really, really focus on the things that matter. I know what kind of activities produce the best results for me, and I just do those. Leave the rest. If I can outsource, I outsource. If not, I sometimes just drop activities that I think don't add value to my work. What else? I'm really knowing where I'm going, what I need to do, and yeah, using all my tools to get there.
Yeah. And I think, it's really key what you said. You have to think about what are my priorities? What do I really need to get done? And I think in times in the past, especially when I was first really starting to look at this, I was overwhelmed because I was trying to do everything. And I quickly learned you can't do everything, right?
Well, sometimes you can, but at the end of it, you're tired, and
Yeah.
maybe you didn't even make enough progress because so many things on your to-do list were useless.
Right, right. And you might have tried to do too many and not done any of them well.
Right. That's also true.
Yeah. I read in your book, I think it was in your book that you said you didn't miss your commute. You weren't commuting anymore. Is that right?
I I have moments when I miss my commute
Yeah.
because
So
that
let's talk
was
about that. I relate to that and I'll tell you why. But so go ahead.
the moment when I had time for myself. I used to spend about an hour to and from on the train. And sometimes I read, sometimes I listened to music, but sometimes I didn't do anything. I was just sitting on the chair for an hour. It was really great because it was that transition time between work and home. And when I was working as a yoga teacher, from work to the studio and then to home, I needed those transitions time to switch my brain into what I'm going to do next. So yeah,
Yeah.
I do need it. I miss it sometimes.
Yeah. So I had a similar experience. So there was a year and a half during the pandemic where I just worked at home, and that was new for me. Mostly I had been going into the office for many, many years. And my drive was about the same, 45 minutes to an hour. And when I was just working from home, I realized, oh, that time was so valuable to me. I don't miss the driving, I don't miss paying for gas, all that stuff. But the time, it's exactly like you described. It was that way for me. It was that nice separation. It was a time to get into some deep thought, think about my day and kind of decompress from the day and then go home and engage with my family. And so when I didn't have that, I realized how much, and it wasn't, it wasn't the commute, so to speak, but it was that time that was so important to just really have some time to think, or as you said, not to think. Maybe it's just I'm just listening to music and I'm not thinking, or maybe solving problems at work or thinking about different things, and it was just such valuable time. And I kind of made a joke with my wife, while I was not working in the office at all. I say, well, okay, I'm going to drive home now, and move from my home office maybe to my recliner in my room again before I was ready just to go hang out with everybody and in the family. And I just realized how valuable it was, and that it was important to make sure I had that time. I'm going into the office 2 days a week now, so I have that time as commuting time. But when I'm not, I still need to make sure I have that time to think, decompress after work, all of that. So that was just one thing that made me realize, as introverts, the time to think, the time to plan, it's so important that we give ourselves that time.
Absolutely. And now when we're working from home, we learn that, oh, it was valuable. So let's try to bring it into our days without going anywhere. And for me now that is walking my dogs at the beginning of the day. That's the first 1-2 hours. That's it. I'm going out to the park, walking the doggies, and then I'm ready.
Yeah, that's good. There's a lot of talk about introvert recharge. It's like I was just describing, there's a lot more reasons why we need time alone. It's to think and plan, focus, and all that good stuff. But we do need time to recharge. Why is that important for introverts to take the time to recharge from various things?
If we don't get that time, because it's embedded in our brain that we need it, somehow the brain will get it. And that might be in very very unfortunate circumstances, it will force you to take a break. It will force you to go and be away from other people. And I know in the book I gave the example of in the beginning when I just had my child and we were all home all the time. I sometimes started to pick fights just so I can leave the room and be on my own for a little bit so I can recharge. So if you don't intentionally get that time, your brain will make you take it in some way or another.
Right. So how do we figure that out with those that we care about, those that we work with, that we need this time? How do we set appropriate boundaries so that we get this time, but also send the message, this is something I need. I do care about you. It's not personal. How do we do that?
I guess for us, it's really easy because our partners are introverts and
Yeah, in
they
our
know.
cases, yes, yes. Well, you know
But
what though? It's still something to negotiate because again, yes, my wife is a fellow introvert, so she does understand that piece. And actually, we didn't understand that from the beginning. Some of our understanding came as I started writing about introversion and she's helping me edit my blogs and my book. Oh, that's why she is ignoring me over there because she's thinking, she's deep in thought. And we'd been married a long time when I started writing about introversion and we definitely love spending time together. We're never drained by each other. She's somebody that is never draining to me. But at the same time, sometimes she needs her space. Sometimes I need mine. And it's still a negotiation, even though we're fellow introverts.
it is easier when you know that,
Yes.
even if you have that first instinct to get upset, oh, she's ignoring me, then you realize, oh, I know why it's happening. Okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna leave her.
Yeah.
And well, why do you think it's so hard for us to say, hey, I need some space to friends? Well, nowadays we can use technology maybe to implement some of these boundaries. And I was just talking to someone about the fact that no one can add anything in my calendar earlier than 48 hours in advance because I need time to prepare. So that's a boundary that I've put using technology. But then if there are friends, I guess in time they start to learn our ways. And they know that, oh, I might text Andrea, but she will probably text me back tomorrow. I guess,
Yeah.
They learn.
Yeah. And I think it's the overall problem in our society is that maybe our extroverted friends and colleagues, they don't need the same thing. And neither is right or wrong. It's just different. And sometimes they may not understand that you need some time alone when they don't need the same time alone. And that's why we do this work. It's bringing understanding. Hey, you know what? I do best. Like one of the things that changed my life was just blocking off my calendar for the first 90 minutes of my workday. That was life changing for me. It's that time to get ready for the day, to maybe focus on something. And that's been key. But my extroverted friend may not need that same thing.
Right. We need to learn how to communicate this, knowing the relationship and knowing what the outcomes of the relationship are. Then we can find a way to tell that person, this is what I need to do my best work.
Yes, absolutely. I love how you put that. This is what I need to do my best. And we need to understand that about other people. Here's what they need to do their best and really support each other in the different ways we get to our best.
Right.
Wow, there's so many things that I want to talk about today. If an introvert isn't confident, how do they gain that confidence?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say they don't need confidence. They need courage.
Okay.
That's the first step. You cannot be confident in something that you haven't done yet. And we sometimes think that we need confidence before we do something. It's not a requirement. It's a result of what we're doing. And obviously, you need to have that courage to do it first, the first time. And little by little, you will gain the confidence. However, I also wanted to say that you can be still very nervous and confident at the same time. I am confident in what I talk about, but before we had this conversation, how do you think I felt? I was so nervous as I was waiting in Zoom, and the little spinner that goes around, and it made me so nervous. And I realized, oh, you can be confident and nervous at the same time, and you can feel the nerves, the anxiety, and still go ahead and do the thing. In my case, what matters is, am I willing to feel the anxiety for us to have this conversation, for us to be able to spread this message? And the answer is yes, I will feel anxious again tomorrow if that's what it's needed.
Okay. I like that distinction. Because there's things that are going to be new that we may still be learning, but we can have the courage to do them. I like that.
Absolutely. And again, as you said, some things are hard for everyone, not just for introverts.
Right. And then you also talk about being a visible introvert. What does that mean?
Visible, I chose the term visible because it's the opposite of invisible, which is kind of how I felt for a while, when no one knows who you are and what you do, and then people forget about you, or things that really make you feel invisible. I was on in a writing group with a group of 10 people, and we all worked on something together. The paper got out and they forgot to put my name, and that was one of the best examples of me being invisible. It still happens sometimes, but I knew that if I let this be how I live, I will never thrive. If people don't know you, you cannot succeed on your own. And this is why I decided, okay, no more invisibility. Let's work on becoming visible. And that was the work, to have people that know who you are, what you do, how you can help them, create a network of people who either work with you or can recommend you. This is visibility for me. Just being out there when you need to be out there while still nurturing yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Andreea, there's so many other things I could ask you today. This has been a great conversation. Is there anything else that you want to highlight from your book that we haven't talked about yet?
Since we talked, we touched on confidence and networking. Public speaking is also a really good example of this kind of work. And since we're also talking about visibility, we maybe have the impression that this is not for us because we're introverts. I think everyone struggles with public speaking in the beginning. I think this is one of the biggest fears of humanity, public speaking. So It's not because you're an introvert, it's because you're human. And give yourself time to prepare ahead, so you are confident in your topic, and you know that you developed the idea as best as you could. Practice. And then if you are still nervous, remember that it's normal and you can still do it with the nerves.
Absolutely. I mean, look, two introverts here, being visible and having a public presence. And yeah, I used to be terrified of public speaking. I'm not. I don't get nervous. And it's normal to get nervous, as you're saying, but I don't. And part of it is so important is preparing and thinking ahead of time. what do I want to talk about? What's my message? And, you can't prepare for everything, but do your best preparation and tell yourself, I did my best preparation. Another kind of one of those thoughts that has really helped me is, you know what? You're not perfect, but nobody else is either. So, and
Absolutely.
and then after, if you need it, give yourself that time to recharge.
Oh, it's not an if. It's for sure I need it.
Yeah. So like I have absolutely loved this conversation, but guess what? I blocked off an hour after, and in the beginning of podcasting, I wasn't doing that. And I'd find that, I'd have these great conversations, but I still needed the little bit of downtime after. So again, I've loved this conversation, not draining, but I need to recharge after.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Andreea, where can people find out about the great work that you do and your book and everything?
They can go to andreasandu.com, which is myname.com. Just remember that Andreea has 2 E's instead of just one.
Yeah.
And that's where you can find the link towards the book, to learn about high performance, and even set up a strategy call with me. If they want to learn more about high performance, everything is there. Or if they want to stay in touch via email, there's information. And thank you for that, for the conversation as well. It's been really, really good.
Great. And I will put all of that into the show notes. And thanks again, Andreea. This has been a very wonderful and helpful conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to further connecting with you. Reach out at david@quietandstrong.com or check out the quietandstrong.com website, which includes blog posts, links to social media, and other items. Send me topics or guests you would like to see on the show. If you're interested in getting to know yourself better, there's now a free Type Finder personality assessment on the Quiet and Strong website. This free assessment will give you a brief report, including the 4-letter Myers-Briggs code. I'll add a link to the show notes. There's so many great things about being an introvert, so we need those to be understood. Get to know your introverted strengths and needs and be strong.